Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja Podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to UpRev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Today's guest on the UpRev Ninja podcast is Jemima Ashley. Jemima is the founder of Epic Social, creative director of Tangs Design, and one half of the Business Experiment podcast. She is passionate about breaking through myths and misconceptions about being an entrepreneur and thrives on helping other business owners success. Jemima is a raw, natural-born artist, a skilled improviser, and comedian. In 2015, she was named Canberra's Artist of the Year. She has extensive studies in fields of security, intelligence, and speaks several languages. Jemima works exclusively as a mentor, comedy writer, is a speaker, and also social media guru. She is also a blogger and a regular contributor to multiple media outlets. Jemima brings an original, quirky sense of humor and a fun-loving attitude to everything she does. She is passionate about helping people to express their individuality and creativity. Hi, Jemima. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. I've already read your...
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I really appreciate when I was reading your bio to see if this was going to be a good fit, and I don't even know where to start today with you. I mean, there's so many different avenues we can take.
Let's just do one podcast. If I need to come back, I'm totally available.
Fantastic. Well, I've already read the bio to my audience, but I would love to hear your own words. Just kind of share, from your perspective. Who are you?
I just got real deep real quick. I like it. So my name is Jemima. I live in Australia. As you can tell, I have a different accent to you. I am 31 and I live in a little town called Canberra, which is actually a nation's capital, but no one's ever heard of it. So I'm a small-town country girl who ended up in law enforcement for 10 years, threw my job in to become a jewelry designer after suffering pretty much crippling anxiety after 10 years of really just being in the midst of stuff, who started a podcast, which became one of Australia's most downloaded podcasts ever, and now have a social media business as well. So busy lady. It's good.
Yeah, like I said, when I got your bio, it talked about, working for the Australian Federal Police, the UN in Manhattan. One day you're walking around, you see jewelry, and that sparks the whole thing. And obviously, the bio also gets into anxiety and stuff like that. And I can't imagine just law enforcement and everything that you have to deal with, and some of the stuff that you have to hear and see. What that creates. So, what led you to get into podcasting and the jewelry making and everything?
Okay, so I'm in Manhattan, of all places, which is nowhere near Australia. So I was visiting on holidays, actually, and I was doing a little bit of work while I was over there as well. And it was as I was kind of writing my master's, and I ended up, the accommodation that I was staying at was directly below. It was on a 5th floor apartment and directly below a silversmith. And this poor guy, right? So I stalked him for about a week. Every time I didn't know what he was doing either. I just knew that I was really into what he was doing. And so we had on day 7. So it was this Brooklyn guy was like, "Get your ass in here, girl. What are you doing?" And he was yelling at me. I was like, "Hi, what are you doing? I need to know." And I sat down with him over the next couple of days and we made a ring. And I came back to Australia. I'm like, this is the thing I'm meant to do. I love this. And I was at work, doing massive, 80-hour weeks. And I was coming home playing with jewelry at night. It became this cathartic kind of thing. And the podcast started organically out of that. So the business Tangs Design had been running for maybe about a year, 18 months. And a girlfriend of mine, Siobhan, from her and I went to kindergarten together, right? We've known each other forever, preschool, I think you guys call it. And we've known each other forever, and she was starting a business, and she kept ringing me for real practical advice. So it was stuff like, how do you get a business name? How do you get an ABN? How do you how do you get your insurances in order, all these real practical tips about starting a business. And she's like, I can't find the step-by-step information. I don't know how to do this. And we just thought we were hilarious. So we would like laugh at ourselves, right? Thinking we're hilarious.
Yeah.
And I ended up saying to her, like, oh, we should start a podcast, kind of off the cuff comment. I've got no history, no industry practice, nothing in this kind of realm. And I hung the phone up, and I was sitting at a beach in Perth in Western Australia, which is the other side of Australia for listeners who aren't familiar with Australia. And I was on Facebook and I read an article. Someone had tagged me in a post and it was called 10 Ways to Get Ahead in Business. I opened the article thinking, oh, great, some, practical tips here. And one of the tips, the first one was eat an apple a day.
Okay.
And I ran him back. I'm like, I'm out. I quit. I can't read another rubbish article about this kind of stuff. I can't do it. Like, we need to be putting practical tips out there for people. It's already hard enough, and this kind of clickbait media isn't helping. So we ended up starting a podcast, and we literally Googled how to start a podcast, and we started a podcast.
That's fantastic.
So, we've just celebrated our first birthday. About 3 million people have been engaged with us over the last year, and we've been really fortunate. And and it's a job I get to go to every day, and I love it every single day. It's an absolute barrel of laughs.
That's fantastic. When you started this new journey, were you still doing the law enforcement side of stuff, or UN, or had you already left that?
So I was out of that. I left in February 2016. Just getting my years right. I may not be young. 2016. And yeah, we started sort of in June, July 2016. So it was polar opposite. I spent a lot of time not being in front of cameras and not promoting my name and all of that sort of stuff. Working in law enforcement, you're not allowed to really do that. And it's just not for your own protection or your family's protection. But then sort of actually being in the public spotlight was completely foreign and completely different. So starting a podcast was like very strange. And then like people would start recognizing me, right? Like, oh, I know you. You're the, oh my God, how do you know? Like, how have we met again? Oh, you do a podcast. I do.
I listen to you every morning.
That's a positive thing you just said.
So when you started this podcast, I mean, you said you've had 3 million downloads, I think, over the.
Oh, we've had like 3 million people kind of engage with us on like any of the platforms. I don't know the specifics of how many exact downloads we've had. We're in 39 countries as of yesterday.
So a year ago, though, you were at zero. So like
zero.
What? I don't know. I mean, you had to have some not stumbling block, but like. A light bulb went off at some point, like, wow, this is a real thing, right?
Yeah, we kind of, if for people who are going to go and check this out, it's called The Business Experiment. But what we basically talked about was, let's start a business and let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's talk about the real of starting a business. And we basically started using this term, the business reel, because what we were finding is so many people would be not dishonest about their situation, but not honest in current real time about their situation. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, what we don't talk about is how hard it is, how much it sucks and how much we don't want to do it and how much we juggle this full-time career to pay the bills, and then we're doing this other passion project on the side, and how that doesn't make any money for the first 2 years, and how, we've all read that stat about if you're going to start a business, have 3 months savings, it's more like 6 months to a year, right? There's no way that's enough. And pardon me. So we started this kind of with this idea of let's actually talk about the real, and we made this joke about like, if our parents listen, great. At least we're kind of making this document like of what we did and what that looked like. And here was the joke on us. If you go back and listen to the podcast, we tell some funny stories about our family, and we kind of wait for them to ring us and kind of berate us. And they keep telling us, oh, we're listening. Okay, they didn't listen.
Oh, no.
I had to stop. They're telling us like, we're listening, it's great, we love it. We're like, we know you're not listening because we keep telling like worse and worse stories from childhood of hilarity. And we had like code words and all this sort of stuff going on. But then our numbers started climbing, and then we had, phone calls from, is Shark Tank a thing in the States? I think it probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Shark Tank called us on like episode 10. We were like, oh God, okay, this is a thing now.
Wow. Okay.
And then we had people, calling us and wanting to have conversations with us and wanting to come on the show. And we started getting lots more mail. And what we realized is we had started a conversation that no one else was having. Let's talk in very real time about business. Let's talk about what it's like to be in business. So what we were seeing was people who were being honest with the crowd after the fact, but walking out on stage and saying, 4 years ago, I was $60,000 in debt and everything was failing. And then some big thing turns around and then they're talking as they're millionaires. What if you had the person saying, which in real time very much happened to us, we lost $10,000 because we took a wrong gamble.
Wow.
And we went and did a podcast about it. And we would have people writing, this was hilarious. And we'd have, I was crying with laughter. But I was just crying. Like, that was
Right.
the saddest thing. Like, we lived it. Try being us for a day. So it was this real take on, let's actually document what happens, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we deliver on that every week.
I think that's great. I mean, it's about vulnerability and not just sugarcoating everything.
And what we did is created a community where it was okay to fail. We created a community that it was all right for us to not be okay. We created a community to come and say, this is really hard right now and I don't know what I'm doing. And, here, the number one life hack, right? Like, we're all kind of just winging it
Yeah.
every day. Like, and if you can figure that out as an adult, it's kind of liberating. You watch these people like they've got their shit together. They don't.
Right.
They don't know more than you do.
So what about like this personality that you're showing me now? Has this always been you? Like,
Yeah, this is me.
yeah.
Outright. Absolutely. I've never been more, we painted ourselves in a corner a little bit with, we're going to be real and we're going to be who we are. And this is it. And we have to be those people because the people that they connect with on a podcast or they connect with in person has to be who we are. If I'm having a bad day, I'll tell. I really have painted myself into a corner. Like,
Right.
I just have to be. How are you going to say, I'm not having a great day, I have a bit of a headache. How about you? Because my life has now become polar opposite of law enforcement of now everything is kind of up for grabs and I'm going to tell the truth about how it is. So, and that includes who I am.
I think that's fantastic because I think a lot of people, they get themselves painted in a corner because they put this facade on, right? Like,
Yeah.
And it's really common with social media today. You only post the positive, nothing else, right?
I had a showcase in Perth last week, and we were late. So we had this brilliant idea about going down the coast and spending a couple of days, and I'll just drive back to do this artist showcase. It'll take 8 hours. It's fine. It's an 8-hour showcase. I was like, oh, that's fine. Problem was traffic. This is like Facebook Live video of like, I'm late to my own showcase, guys. Like,
Right.
Whoops. Just doing my hair and makeup in the car going, this is what it's like. I'm doing, my friend's driving and we're doing 100 and I'm trying to put a dress on in the back seat. So this is the real. This is what it really looks like. This is what people don't show you.
Wow.
And it's kind of fun too. Like, I hate to, it's one of those beautiful things about being like, well, the good warts and all, this is where we are. This is who I am.
I think authenticity is perfect. I mean, I really do. And I mean, when we were talking before, the show we started recording, you asked about editing, and like, I want people to hear, my authenticity as well as yours.
Yeah.
That being said, kind of, going along your journey and everything that you've done and where you're at now, did you ever find a time where, like, when a light bulb went off where you felt like, wow, this is something I can become a better version of myself? Something that was holding you back. And it sounds like you've always been authentic. So for me, that was always holding me back, not being authentic, not being vulnerable.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, actually I had a light bulb moment a little while ago. And this is, I think one of the things that we do as humans is we don't really realize the layers of complexity that we have. And I had a moment where often I meet people who have incredible stories and do incredible things. And I had a moment where I was reading a book recently by a guy named Jamin Fraser. Jamin's Australian, a really lovely bloke. And I'll be sure to provide the link to his book.
Perfect.
as I look around, I can't see it, so to find the name of it. It's like complex solutions for, basic solutions to complex people or something. And he tells this story about his body failing in a marathon. And he talks about, then spending the next year kind of sidelined and not being able to run anymore and not feeling healthy and all this kind of stuff. And I had kind of this light bulb moment where as a kid I grew up and I had really bad kidney issues.
Okay.
And they, like, whenever I needed my body to work, it just wouldn't as well as I wanted it to. And then it was I left a relationship in 2012 and I moved to Canberra, and then my life starts getting better and better again. An accident and I had to have a shoulder reconstruction. I was kind of like floored again by my body. And one of the things that kind of like this moment was like I just didn't trust my body. I actually realized in reading this moment there was so much distrust because whenever I needed my body to work, it just wouldn't. And like that moment was pretty, and then I, of course, like getting anxiety,
right.
Like on top of that, it was just this moment of whenever I have needed my body I didn't trust it and I needed it. I needed to rebuild a relationship with it.
Wow. Because
I kind of had seen it being two separate entities. So that was probably like the hardest lesson I've had in the last probably 5 years of, wow, this is hard. Like this is why I've struggled probably where I have and where I've kind of fallen down a little. And so I had to kind of rebuild this relationship with my body of a real positive one. And I think women in particular, and I'm not saying that men are immune to this, but I think women are judged more harshly on their bodies. And I think that women sort of self-loathe a bit more on their bodies. But I realized that a lot of mine had come from a failure of my body to participate in said things I needed it to.
Right.
So yeah, I had to kind of rebuild this relationship. So,
wow.
And that was really, really hard. That was really hard, like to sit there and be like, right, okay. And it literally put me on the floor. Like I just lay down on my floor. I was like, I don't even know how to start with this.
Right. How did you start? Like, what was that journey like? I mean,
it's ongoing. So one of the things I looked at immediately was like, what am I doing to help my body? Like, what do I do to love my body? It was stuff like getting a massage once a week.
Yeah.
It was stuff like, falling back in love with, this thing that has got me through and so many adventures and things like that. But, and taking care of myself and, basic things, making sure I'm getting the right nutrition, make sure I'm eating healthy, make sure I'm eating whole foods. I've stopped eating a lot of meat from an ethical standpoint. I'm struggling with that now as I'm getting older. Really, nutrition being first and foremost the thing that I'm taking care of. Then it was followed by treating my body well, making sure I'm doing yoga, making sure I'm doing meditation, giving myself a break, making sure self-care, it's so silly, but self-care is never selfish. And listeners of the podcast will hear me yell this regularly. You need to be taking care of yourself.
You do.
As well as your body.
Yeah.
So, and I was seeing them as two very split entities. They're actually just one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, and the other piece of, if you've got, family, relationship, anything, I mean, you can't take care of them until you take care of yourself. I mean.
Oh, right. Yeah. And when you're giving, and I've, figured out later my schemas and all of that sort of stuff, and self-sacrifice is a big one of mine. So it became, right, I need to be the priority here, because if I'm, it's like the water jug, right? If you're completely empty, how can you give to anyone else?
Right. Totally. So along that journey or anything, have you ever been given just a piece of advice that you're like, wow, it's a golden nugget?
I've had a few real amazing key ones. The first one that comes to mind was something my sister gave me. It was a little card, and I was living in interstate, and I was kind of in this, do I leave a relationship? Do I not? What's what do I do? Do I move to the East Coast? Like, it's equivalent of moving from like LA to New York, right? Do I leave this whole life behind? Do I go and take this random job that I'm not really sure what happens? Still in law enforcement, but totally different. And she gave me a card, and she's like, this has always served me well. And all it said was, oh goodness, now I've got to remember what it said.
It's okay.
If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. And it was just this idea of, if something happens, like, you can only go so far, you've got to make the commitment. But, why not take the opportunities if they arise? The other thing is that, so as I hopefully have gotten across, I'm a little bit of a comedian, do a bit of improv as well. And one of the key mantras that was kind of given to me was run towards the monster. And it was basically when, as humans, we try not to do the scary things.
Right.
As an improviser, you're actually thrown into the scary things and you're actually told to run towards the monster. And that was something that I very much lived to. That the scary stuff is what stops us. The scary stuff is where we pause. The scary stuff is the stuff that we don't want to do. So how about instead of that, we just run towards it?
Right.
What if we just run head on towards it, even if it is going to attack us, it's going to try to gobble us up? Why don't we just run towards it? Because I think indecision at that point is really, really dangerous. And so and the other one that you'll often hear me say is one crisis at a time, which is always like people go the too big picture. It's always like there's always like, oh, what if this happens? No, what is the immediate thing that we need to deal with before the next step? What is the next logical step? And I think that is 80% of being an entrepreneur. It's just one crisis at a time, put one fire out, and then we'll deal with the next one.
Well, and I think people do get carried away with what if scenarios. And
and they're dangerous.
They just go to that negative place, and it's you're not getting anywhere fast.
Yeah.
So you've already kind of hit on a couple of things I was going to ask next. You talked about meditation. You talked about just tackling one fire at a time. By the way, I did improv as well. Absolutely fantastic. I got so much out of that. Totally. So
it applauds. The key thing. I think the key takeaway of improv is that it applauds failure. Yeah. Because as humans, we don't want that, right? What if we reframed it? As in, failure is not necessarily, it's just that old thing about it wasn't so much a step backwards as a cha-cha-cha to go forward. Failure is one of those things that happens to everyone. And I don't know, again, being really authentic, I'm not saying, I think we should be celebrating our failures to a degree. Yeah, we made a mistake. Keep going. What did you learn from it?
Yes, that's the key question right there is what did you learn from it? I think so many people are like, they have this shame built around it and they just bury it and they don't want to talk about it. But if you can examine it, why did this happen? What could I have done differently, and how could I improve going forward? Like growth happens right there. So, so that being said, do you have a tip, trick, hack, anything like that you kind of swear by that like you've already mentioned, improv and meditation and fighting one fire at a time, stuff like that you really feels balances your life and makes your life more manageable and better.
A bunch of stuff.
Totally.
Like, wasn't it? Cure fire for everyone. So the big thing is, what I realized was, there were a few key things that I do as practical tips and tricks. So the first thing is I organize my following day the night before. So I have a passion planner. So for people who don't have a passion planner, I cannot recommend getting this diary enough. It's broken up into half an hour increments. And when your day is broken up into half an hour increments, it looks a lot more manageable than a list on a piece of paper because you can actually schedule time in, right? And so actually schedule in stuff like massage, meditation, date. So you can actually go and just put these things in. And so then you can, you have to hold yourself accountable, right, at the same time. So, once you start scheduling your life a little bit better, and it's, it's basic time management stuff, but making it less daunting. But again, running towards the monster, do the things you don't want to do first.
Yeah.
So I read a book called The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. I am somewhat obsessed with her. She did an amazing TED Talk called Stop Screwing Yourself Over, which she talks about parenting yourself, right, and about how we don't want to do the things. When we turn 18, no one tells us that we're going to have to parent ourselves. So she talks about this in her TED Talk and also in her book. And she said that she starts her day at whenever she wakes up, she gets out of bed straight away. She doesn't eat snooze. She starts her day.
Right.
My day starts at 5 a.m. That sounds ridiculous, and I'm in the middle of a Canberra winter, which is cold, like minus temperatures. Like, people think Australia's hot all the time. It's really not. It's freezing. There's snow and ice, and I hate it. 5 o'clock this morning, alarm goes off. I'm like, right, I'm up. Stood up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stood up, started my day. The reason that I do this is because guess what? 5 o'clock in the morning, no one wants to talk to me. No one's asking me questions. No one's like, where's the coffee? No, where's breakfast? No one's asking me any of these questions. No emails are coming in, and I get me time. And that time is for me to center myself, make sure that I'm ready for the day ahead. Might be to go for a walk, might be a yoga session, might be meditation. It might just be, and, self-care we think of in really, really kind of dumb terms of sitting in a room full of jasmine-scented room or something. It can be a 90s dance party in the middle of your living room if that's what you want, if that's what your self-care is. It could be singing Alanis Morissette angry songs in your car as you're going to the supermarket. Like, that is self-care. If that makes you feel better, do that. So those are kind of my big ones of like, get up early, manage your time, because the day can really manage you if you don't manage it. So that's a big one for me. Meditation's great. If you ask a new person to meditation, I recommend guided meditations are great, especially when you're first starting out, because they can be it can actually be really daunting to like lay on a yoga mat or sit down and try to think of nothing. Mindfulness is very difficult because it can be overwhelming. So if you are a little bit stuck, check out something like bexlife.com, bexlife.com. She's American babe. She's awesome. Does really, really like 4-minute mindfulness exercises, all available online and on YouTube. Okay. So, it's fantastic.
Yeah, the getting up early, no one bothers you. I'm more productive.
It sucks. Don't get me wrong. Like that first month of doing it is like, I don't know why I'm doing this. We did the Business Experiment did an experiment on this. We often conduct experiments through the podcast about what works, what doesn't. We test products out as well. And so we had this amazing one of, I get up at 5 a.m. every day, and there's like this video of me just like, I don't even know why I'm awake. I don't know what's going on. It's raining. There's also photos of me just laying on my yoga mat, and my cat's laying on me. Like, how even I remember looking at me going like, why are you getting up? It's so dark outside. I'm even going back to bed. I'm not even hungry yet.
But sometimes you get more done in that first hour or two than you do the rest of the day,
Right? You get it. It's necessary.
What about books? You've mentioned a few. Is there a book that you just absolutely adore that you recommend to people? And it doesn't matter if it's about business or anxiety or networking, being authentic. Is there a book that you just really highly treasure?
So many. Oh my goodness. I'm looking at my library collection right now going, where do I start? Okay, so the big key ones, this is not even related, but just to be a good human, I so recommend Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. She talks a lot about impro in that and about, she's just funny and I love her, so I have to plug her because she's awesome. And it's just such an interesting book about the yes and this whole idea behind impro and just being good. I really, really enjoyed, from a creativity point of view, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I think some of her stuff is a little, Eat, Pray, Love was a great story, but I think Big Magic really talks about creativity and about what creativity is and what it isn't, and about, how to build creativity in around your life, because so many people I hear go, I'm not creative, I don't have time for this, I don't have this, whereas Big Magic kind of goes, actually, here's a whole bunch of time that you can have in different ways. And it really does focus on follow your passion. Don't have a destination in mind. Really just follow your passion and go from there. Just scanning my room for like other books that I'm obsessed with. Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg. Any females listening to this, you have to read that. If you don't, you're going to be behind the back foot. Like, Sheryl's just amazing in everything that she does. And I'm actually currently listening to, so I'm big on audiobooks.
Yeah.
I don't really have the time to sit down and read a lot. So audiobooks is where it's at for me. Gary Vaynerchuk, obsessed with him at the moment. I'm listening to all of his stuff. Like every entrepreneur, right? Gary V, all about Gary.
It is.
But I'm listening to all of his books at the moment. And it's awesome. I think I'm listening to I'm listening to Ask Gary V at the moment. I just finished Crush It, so I'm pretty excited. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about his stuff. It's again, very practical, very give you tips and tricks about businessing.
Right. Yeah, I love tips and tricks. Not that like there's theory and then there's how you
Yeah.
actually get it done.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, absolutely. You know,
so-
and all for the theory, all of the understanding of the creative process, all for understanding, you know, human behavior and why that works and selling and marketing and stuff. But again, I just want to know how to get it done.
yeah,
Just start.
yeah,
So,
totally. So, you know, again, going back, you've got a ton of experience in, you know, different fields, different industries.
Yeah.
You know, is there something that you would recommend that you felt just kind of catapulted you, that kind of pushed you outside of your comfort zone and you really grew as a person? Skydiving, bungee jumping, wrestling an alligator, you know, moving to Manhattan.
yeah, that was 5 months. 5 months I think I was there for.
Yeah.
Which are like my absolute favorite thing in the world. If anyone wants to like put me up there for like a year or so, like I'm down. I'm pretty good house guest.
Awesome.
Just FYI, I just like I'd be remiss of me if I don't mention that I want to live there forever. There's actually a big painting of New York just behind me. Yeah, Manhattan skyline. The one thing that really catapulted me, it's a negative experience, and that's probably not the right word for it. It was a not terrific experience that I wish no one would ever have. Was I had my first ever panic attack, and that changed my life. That was the moment that I realized that I was on the wrong path. And I don't think that anxiety is the same as nerves, and I don't think it's the evil thing that is going to destroy your life unless you let it. But at the same time, I think that was really drawing attention for me that my life was wrong. So, you know, threw my job in. That was this negative, what should have been a really negative experience became a real liberating one because I embraced it and went, okay, my life is clearly not what it means to be. And I was really lucky. I found a really good, I found a really good GP. I found a really good psychologist. I found really good support immediately. And I had really good family and friends around me to help me. My partner was amazing. But, you know, it was probably an experience that happened that kind of catapulted me in a totally different direction because it made me go. I was in a career that was exhausting and had burnt me out, and I wasn't willing to admit to that because I loved it. One of the great things about law enforcement is it's your identity, it's who you are,
right?
And everyone else is that job. You're all the job. And I loved it, and I still love it, and I miss it every day. I'll be the first person to say that. I do now watch a lot of crime drama because I'm not, you know, that's something I really loved, and it was a huge part of my life, and it's all my education and college and at university and stuff like that. So, but it catapulted me into a much better version, healthier, kinder, more beautiful version of myself.
I think, you know, something I find with, you know, military and law enforcement that I don't necessarily see in other careers is the sense of identity. It's just like you said, it's who you are. You breathe and eat it 100% every day. Whereas I feel a lot of other careers, and this isn't, you know, this is a stereotype, but a lot of other careers, people can turn that off when they get home for the day. It might take them an hour or two, but on the weekend, it's the weekend, and they're not the director of marketing or whatever. But law enforcement, military,
and I mean, it's the people you can hang out with. It was the people. It was, you know, I was drug tested regularly.
Right.
I had to deal with who I could not associate with.
Right.
It was security clearances being updated. It was new relationships being put on paper and having to be submitted for approval. Like this was an ongoing complex process, but it was my life. And again, polar opposite to what I'm doing now. This, you know, I'm just going to get on and have a chat on a podcast today, and I'm going to, you know, review someone's social media accounts. It's a completely different kind of line of work. But leaving that, I lost part of my identity. But at the same time, I'd lost myself completely into a job that was exhausting, and I just ended up not feeling safe all the time because all the time everything I was doing was being criticized or monitored and the work, you know, here's the thing with law enforcement and military, no one's ever having a terrific day.
Right.
You either get a victim who's having the worst day of their life or an offender who's been caught and their story is also heartbreaking as well because it's never they've just broken into someone's house for whatever reason or committing an offense for this reason.
Right.
It was always story that was heartbreaking as well. Like, no one's having a great day. You're never investigating who's got more kittens.
Right.
So where's this, where's all these drugs coming from, and why do we have dead children on the street? Like, this is the stuff that you're dealing with day in and day out. And I think, career breaks in law enforcement are important, and military as well, but it's, it's losing an identity a little bit. And that was that was hard. Like, it was really, really hard for me, because I had to give up friendships and people who were like, why are you leaving?
Right.
And, to explain I'm going to start a jewelry business made sense to nobody. Least of all, like, my family, right? Like, what are you doing? My dad's like, I'm happy to pay for you to go and talk to someone. No, I'm good, Dad. Like, I actually think this is the best thing.
This is what I need. Well,
yeah, but again, like, it makes sense to no one, right? I have all this education and, degrees and certificates and stuff in law enforcement. I'm like, might start a jewelry business. This seems like it makes sense to have nobody.
So what are you working on now to up-rev yourself to make yourself better? We're always in this process of, trying to, self-development and growth. What are you currently working on?
So at the moment I've really been trying to get this 5 a.m. thing down pat.
Yeah. And
I've been trying to really make sure that I'm using my time to the best of my ability. And the problem is that I had with that, and what I didn't foresee happening, is I became a little bit too work obsessed, and I started to neglect things like my relationship and time with people who weren't entrepreneurs. You would have heard that everyone has heard the mantra, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right?
Yeah.
My people are incredible. Shout out to my people. They're amazing. But what's happened is that because I'm spending a majority of my time with them, other friendships have been neglected. My actual relationship with my partner got a little bit neglected as well. So I'm trying to find that happy balance at the moment. It's what I'm working on. So what I've been doing is trying to learn when to switch off and when to actually stop, because I became very good at working for 18-hour days.
Right.
And without really that actually being an issue for me. Getting up at 5 and working till 9, 10 p.m. at night wasn't hard. And during the day, I was having tons of breaks. I was having lunch. I was going out for coffee. I was doing stuff. My partner was at work. So therefore, not that real time where we can hang out, right? So that's what I'm trying to focus on at the moment, as well as time manage what I'm doing and still grow my businesses and spend time with my people and do self-care and take care of myself at the same time.
It's a lot. There's a lot.
It's a lot. And
it's
hard to juggle, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's killing it still. Like, I'm still good about it. But yeah, the 5 a.m. is really the hack to get, how do you get everything done? Just do a little bit more and work a little bit harder than everyone else, right?
It reminds me of a book I read along 10 plus years ago now. It's by Stephen Covey, First Things First. And hopefully he won't get angry at me, but the 300 plus page book, I can sum it up in like 40 seconds. Basically, he talks about, take a glass, and what you do is take what is really important, the big rocks, put those into the glass at first. And then the things that are, these are important, those are smaller rocks, put those in. And then at the end, you put the sand in, and then the water. A lot of people, they do it the reverse way. They're like, my partner will be fine. So I'm going to focus on, the junk mail that came in today, which is, and that fills up the glass before you even take care of your partner.
Yeah. So it's amazing how many people roll over and pick up their phone rather than rolling over and giving their partner a hug.
Yeah.
Like, that for me is one of those things. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, a small life hack, you can put your phone in another room, right? Even if it's an alarm, even if you need that.
Yeah.
The bathroom's pretty close usually.
Yeah.
The hallway is also a great option.
Yeah.
So you're not tempted to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, check your phone for an hour, and then be like, I better start my day. Connect, the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand. You need to be focusing on your rocks.
Yeah, you do. So what do you have for a personal habit that you feel that contributes to your continual growth? I mean, you've touched on quite a few actually throughout this, but is there something you haven't talked about, or is there just one that, getting up at 5 a.m., you really think that's the one right now?
Look, definitely that's probably my number one. Okay. Like little habit and hack and trick and stuff. But just to retouch, like, if your 5 people are wrong, if you're not hanging out with the right people to influence you, that's
Yeah.
that is fundamentally you're in trouble if that's the case. So the theory is, and there's a great university study done on this, and I love this for so many reasons, is they got 4 millionaires and they got 4 people lower socioeconomic, and they got 2 people of middle class, and they all had to hang out together. And they basically had these poor people go and hang out with 4 millionaires and one went to the millionaires, one went to the lower socioeconomic people. And what ended up happening was after a year, they kind of tracked their progress. And what they found is the person hanging out with the millionaires had higher money, like had more money in the bank account, had, now stocks and investment, had better health, taking care of themselves, were, career had gone up. This poor other guy who it was a blind study, by the way, so no one knew what they were being tested for. This other guy had put weight on, wasn't taking care of himself, his relationship was suffering. This whole study done on if you're the sum of the 5 people. And they really proved that the people that you hang around with are going to influence you far more than anything else that you do. So if you want to be a millionaire, you got to hang out with other millionaires, right? If you want to be the most driven person, you got to find the most driven people. And, the other hack that I would give is that you don't necessarily have to hang out with these people in person. If you're obsessed with Tony Robbins, he can actually be one of the 5 people. You just have to go and get all of Tony's stuff and bombard yourself with it, and then find 4 people that kind of match those qualities. Because once you start matching up with those qualities, you can actually identify them in other people that you meet. So I'm really fortunate that my people are great, and that, but that took me over 2 years to kind of build that tribe, right, to find those right people. And that's kind of my big hack, because you need a mentor as well. You need someone who's going to kick your butt, because there are a lot of people who are yes people who are going to tell you what you need to hear, what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear. I recently got a new mentor, and he kicked my butt for the first hour. I was like, yeah, you're successful, you've done really well done. Why aren't you doing more? I was like, well, he's like, no, why aren't you doing more? And I started down I'm pretty busy. He's like, I don't care. Why aren't you doing more? It was this moment of, okay. And, after spending 20 minutes with this guy, he's like, I already know the answer, by the way. I was like, what's the answer? He goes, you're comfortable. It's like, shots fired. Okay, this is happening. You're yelling at me. We've just met. This is weird. But he was right. He looked back and I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're onto something. I'm good. I'm killing it, but I'm not pushing myself as hard as I could be. He's like, no, you're not. Straight-faced. No. Definitely not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's again that authenticity. And this actually reminds me of another quote. I can't quite remember the exact wording, but it's something like, "You don't want to be the smartest person in the room."
Oh no! If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yes.
The other real life hack I'll give on this around this point is that get a power partner. Get someone who is as driven as you. Don't have the same exact job, otherwise it gets weird because you're both going after the same people, but maybe in the same kind of area and as driven as you. Because if you can have someone on a level playing field with you who's going to push you as well, that is going to change your life.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's see here. Just a couple other items.
Sure.
What about parting guidance? What would you give my audience? We're all trying to be better people on this hunk of dirt going around the sun.
So my 2 biggest tips would be this. If you are, there are a lot of people who love the clouds. You've got to love the dirt. Yeah. So there are people who, people are going to make this look really pretty. So let's get back to the real of this. Healing is not linear. Dealing with the stuff that's happened to you in your life is not going to be a pretty process. It's actually going to be playing in the dirt. And most people will want you to look at the clouds. So it's going to be rough, and it's going to be a rough journey as you start to discover who you are as a person. And if you're on that process, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, you can look at the clouds, but you've got to love the dirt. And if you aren't ready to play in that field, and maybe you need someone else to help you with that, and maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's a professional, maybe it's any of that stuff, but you have to absolutely want to play in the dirt. And you've got to learn to love the dirt, because not many people will want you to.
I think that's I'm going to use that quote. when I promote this show. I think that's fantastic.
Oh, she said something excellent. Excellent. I'm happy with that. The other thing is that I would just tell people, just start. I meet so many people who are like, I've got this idea and, I'm trying to figure out the name for it. And I'm like, just start.
Right.
Whatever you're doing, whatever your plan is, whatever you want to do, like, I'll just start. I met someone recently who was like, we're recording this in June. Like, this guy was like, next year when I turn 40, I'm gonna start going to the gym. I was like, you're gonna wait 6 months, really? For real? Like, it was just start. If you've got this idea, if you've got something, there's something that's bothering you, and this is not necessarily just a growth thing. I meet a lot of people and I mentor a lot of people and help out a lot of business owners and sort of do business guidance and stuff like that with people who are like, I've had this idea to start a t-shirt company for 20 years.
Oh.
And I haven't, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm like, just start.
Right.
Just start, because there's so many people, I think, that we get frozen in indecision because it's easier. Like, I'll wait till I'm ready. Here's the trick. You're never going to be ready. You are actually never going to be like, today's the day.
Agreed.
I'm ready. I'm going to do it. You will, as soon as you start to feel that I want to go and do something, do it. If you're at the club and the music starts and you're like, I love this. This is my jam, right? Yeah, it's a 90s song that no one else is dancing to. Just get up. What is the worst that's going to happen? Failure isn't going to kill you.
Not at all.
Failure is not fate. You're going to be the person having the most fun in the room. That sounds like more fun than sitting there to me. Just start. Like, whenever that music starts, get up and do it. So, it's overwhelming to me how many people just didn't start because they just weren't ready. The life hack is here. No one's ever ready. Again, we're all winging it.
Right.
Every day I wake up and do my career and I'm like, what am I doing today? I don't know. I'll figure it out. One crisis at a time. I will figure this all out. I'm not ready to do it. I'm just going to start.
Yep. I completely agree. I mean, I've been looking for my instruction manual and I haven't found it yet. So I just wing it every day.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, you probably won't have one. If you do get a copy, can you flick it to me? I'm
Absolutely.
probably going to need it.
All right, and then just the final question I've got, and it's really about, do you have anything that you're currently promoting, or best way for the audience to connect with you? It's a personal passion project that you're working on that you want to talk about and share.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on a new business, which I'm pretty excited about. So one of the things that I love social media, right? I think that it's an underrated tool. I think people do it wrong. I think we try to sell to people in there. I don't think we use it as the connection tool that it's designed to be. And so at the moment I'm working on a new business called Epic Social with the tagline, "We don't do boring." So that's kind of my passion project at the moment, because I want to help businesses learn how to use their own social media. I mean, you look at Gary Vaynerchuk and he talks about starting a business and then having a parallel social media business running alongside that, talking about your project. Like, people need to be invested in what you're doing.
Right.
And I mean, this comes back to authenticity. This comes back to being who you are. Again, and really liking the dirt of your business. I sit down and make jewelry and it's messy behind the scenes. And someone said to me once how glamorous it must be to be in the fashion industry. I sent them a photo of me wearing like Ugg boot slippers, pants covered in dirt and grime and polishing grease and stuff. My fingernails all broken. I'm like, this is so hot. This is the most glamorous thing you guys are ever going to see. So what I'm doing now is trying to help businesses grow their influence and grow their business by the reel of social media, and to be authentic in this. So if you want to get in touch, I'm doing free 30-minute social media reviews of everyone's accounts. And just to go and check out what you guys are doing just to help you out a little bit. It's kind of my passion project at the moment. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. And I think if we can be more authentic just in this world, I mean, it'll be so much better than what
wouldn't
we
it?
have
Like,
today.
if it was like, I'm having a bad day, what's wrong? Just everything. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And that's the trick is just everyone's kind of going through the same things. I mean, have you ever seen that movie, The Invention of Lying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's this idea of like, how's your day going? Terrible, having the worst day of my life today. I don't want to do this, and I hate you. Like, you know, life kind of goes on, right? People being more authentic. Not saying, you know, being cruel for the sake of being cruel or being hurtful or anything, but if you're not okay, that's really okay.
Yeah.
If you need to take time out for yourself, go and do that thing, do the thing. So if you're looking for me, I'm at jemimaashley.com.au. My podcast is called The Business Experiment in collaboration with Siobhan Joyce. Tangs Design is my jewelry business, and epicsocial.com.au.
Awesome.
Lots of .com.au's, guys. Yes, again, I am Australian.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I really enjoyed this.
I really enjoyed this interview today. And as you can tell, Jemima has a ton of experience. I'll put her full bio up, and it's quite intriguing. But, you know, there are two things I really took away from this. One was just running towards the monster. And, you know, if you have a fear, just tackle it head on. It'll reduce anxiety. It'll reduce your mind always thinking about it. And hey, there's a lot of studies that say that's the first thing you should do in the morning. Do the worst thing that you can. And rest of the day seems pretty simple after that. And the second item that she talks about was the people in your life. You hear this a lot, different, you know, self-development circles, that you're the sum or the average of the 5 people in your life. She talks about that, and it's a pretty interesting discussion that we have. So other than that, I've really enjoyed this interview, and I would love to hear what you think your key takeaways are.
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.